Wooting 60HE has exploded in the past year, which makes what Razer did inevitable. The main selling point of the Wooting 60HE has been its adjustable actuation point and its key feature, the feature that keeps me always using the Wooting 60HE, and that is the rapid trigger. Well, in response to this rapid trigger, Razer has released an update in Synapse that enables their own rapid trigger. So now I thought I'd compare the Wooting 60HE to Razer's analog Huntsman. So let the battle begin. So let's start with the pricing. The Wooting is $175 and the Huntsman is $150. Because of the popularity of the Wooting, the wait times can be about a month as of right now. Before, it was probably like 3 months. Whereas the Razer Huntsman analog, you can now go and just pick it up on Amazon right now, get Amazon Prime and have it in 2 days. So availability and pricing, Razer wins there, and it's a double win if you already have a Razer keyboard, as Synapse enabled this feature, so you don't need to go out and buy a whole nother keyboard. Now when it comes to customizing the keyboards, that is going to the Wooting. It's just better. You can throw it into a custom keyboard case like I have done here. You can mod the switches and stabilizers. This pretty much allows you to make the Wooting into anything that you want it to be. And sure, it's not going to sound like a TGR with Black Ink V2s, but it's for sure one of the best sounding and best looking gaming keyboards to date once you put your own personal touch on it. Now, the Razer analog Huntsman switches sound better than the past keyboards that they put out. The switches don't feel nearly as wobbly or ear piercing as the previous Huntsman models. These aren't hot swappable switches like the Wooting, so you can't take them out, mod them and lube them. You can maybe try to get a brush in there and try to like mod it a little bit. You can't do anything with the case. The only thing you can really do is just switch out the keycaps. So very basic stuff on the customizing. So if you are looking for a keyboard that you can kind of grow with and change up, and there's multiple cases that you can put the Wooting into, the Wooting is the way to go. Out of the box, I do like Razer's keycaps more than the Wooting keycaps. That's why I switched out my keycaps immediately on these, whereas these are more tolerable. The Wootings I just find to be a touch too rough. Now the next important point that puts these two keyboards above the other gaming keyboards is that rapid trigger. This got everybody to switch over to the Wooting 60HE when it first dropped, and now Razer has added it to their own Synapse, essentially copying Wooting. To understand rapid trigger, we need to talk about the actuation point though. The actuation point refers to the point at which your keyboard registers your keystroke. 0.1 is the slightest of keystrokes on the Wooting versus 1.5 millimeters on the Huntsman analog, which is a bit further down the keystroke. Now when we type, we are bottoming out, which means you'll have to come all the way back up 3.9 millimeters on the Wooting and 2.1 millimeters on the Huntsman. The problem lies in the fact that your keyboard will register the keystroke until it actually crosses back over that actuation point. So if you have a high actuation point and you bottom out your keystroke, you're going to have unwanted movement. It's a gift and a curse. Faster registering, but slower on the release because the distance is much longer from the bottom of the switch. That's where rapid trigger comes in, because you can set the distance needed to reset the key, and this 0.15 millimeters on the Wooting and 0.1 on the Razer. Now Wooting used to be 0.1 millimeter, but after an update I noticed they went up to 0.15 millimeters. Maybe that's just more stable, but it's negligible in everyday use. Now both of these switches, the analog on the Razer and the Wooting, can be adjusted. Now the Wooting has a higher 0.1 millimeter to 4 millimeter, and then the Razer has 1.5 millimeter to 3.6 millimeter. Because of this, movement just feels crispier and more responsive on the Wooting. Crucial in a game like Valorant where you're dead zoning, where essentially you're slightly tapping A and D back and forth to make yourself harder to hit while being more accurate and not doing a full strafe. I also saw a difference when full strafing at full speed and then hitting the opposite key. I really saw a big difference when strafing at full speed to counter strafe. It was more responsive on the Wooting, but not by a huge margin. I got a few more straight bullets on the Razer, but still better than your standard 2.0 millimeter actuation point on like a Cherry MX Red switch. Now with some practice, you could potentially get rid of more of those inaccuracies once you get the Razer Huntsman timing down, but I just found myself getting way more straight bullets with the Razer. I will say one thing about that 0.1 millimeter. So if you're somebody who likes to rest their fingers on the keyboard instead of, hovering, mostly you're gonna have some unwanted movement and keystrokes from time to time. So lately I've actually switched over to 0.5 millimeter, and I find that to be the sweet spot on the Wooting. So pro tip there, I'm giving you guys some free game. switch it to 0.5 millimeters. You won't regret it. One thing to know is that you will have to be running Synapse to get Rapid Trigger and have it running in the background. You can't save the profile to the keyboard. It has to be running in the background. So Wooting, you can actually save it to the keyboard and take it with you. And I can see this being a problem for pros because I don't think you can just go to an event and install Synapse on or whatever software that you want on a computer that everybody's using. Now, in conclusion, I do like both keyboards, don't get me wrong. The Rapid Trigger works great on both. So then it just comes down to customizability, which Wooting has down with the ability to swap cases, has the hot swappable switches in there that can be lubed. You know, you can do the stabilizers the way you want it. It also has more adjustability when it comes to the actuation point and the ability to take Rapid Trigger on the go. With this keyboard, it just sets it apart from the Razer Huntsman Analog. This is a great keyboard if you just want something fast, you want Rapid Trigger right away, you're not going to be a pro anytime soon, and you just want something that works out of the box. You don't want to customize. You can't go wrong with the Razer Huntsman Analog. You know, and I don't think that Razer is done with this. Obviously, they're paying attention and seeing what is working in the market, and you got to remember, this was just a software update. In the future, I could see this being released as a full-featured thing for the keyboard that you can take on the go. So kudos to Razer, shout out, I see you, my boy. You did your thing. And I love that you don't have to go out and buy a whole nother keyboard. You can use their existing Razer keyboard and it'll have Rapid Trigger free of cost. So pretty cool from Razer. My pick and the winner of this battle, if you couldn't tell, is the Wooting 60HE though. But Razer, you did good, son. All right, guys, so that's gonna do it for this video. Don't forget to hit that like button and share with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. It has been your boy BT saying peace.